Yeah.
Like I talk about it all the time. Like I say, I am not a conservative. I'm not conservative. But I am pro Second Amendment, and I am a hunter, and I am a cage fighting commentator, and I drink and I smoke cigars, and I like to bow hunt.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there that's like, hey,
crossover.
Yeah, but it's
like no one critiques your wanting people to hunt their own meat take, okay? If anything, I think it's way better than factory farming. No one on the left is like, oh, I have a really big issue with that Joe Rogan. He apparently thinks that meat should be more sustainable. People should hunt their own meat and not rely on factory farming and mass-produced consumption. Like, no one is saying that. It's all your transphobia, non-stop, unfettered transphobia. That's what people critique you for.
But some people got all that money from the government, the COVID money, and then they got unemployment. They didn't want to work.
Comedian and 100-millionaire podcaster Joe Rogan is back in the news, this time for some comments he made about Fox News. And what I find most interesting, though, are the comments he made after the comments about Fox News. But I'm going to play this for you, and we will discuss it. And I'll show you some...
This is... I am going to talk about the debate a little bit at some point today. And I also want to watch the Sargon of Akkad segment that happened previous to me coming on. Because apparently, according to Hates Vadim, it is absolutely wild. Sargon of Akkad does one of the biggest, like, you know... I don't know. It's kind of hard with an individual like that to say that he's like just smashing masks all over the place, but Hayes Vadim was like, you got to watch it. It's absolutely wild. But anyways, they were talking a lot about how they feel that it's improper to label people politically with the labels they don't want. One of the problems I have sometimes with the far right, the alt-right or the light-bright, is that they will try to hide their power levels, and they will try to, or sometimes just libertarians don't realize that they're espousing incredibly right-wing beliefs. I know it's complicated with the political compass to be able to consistently apply terms and everything, but I find pretty often that lefties, whether they are socialists, anarchists, ancoms, you name it, they're going to be pretty open about their political beliefs. They're not going to be like, well, you know, I identify in some ways as a libertarian, in other ways I identify as an anarchist. I'm actually sometimes an anarcho-syndicalist, and you know, there's a variety of different, like, it's basically like, yeah, I'm not ashamed of what I believe, and I'm not ashamed of being a lefty. I'm not trying to hide my leftism in order to achieve a better outcome amongst my peers or something like that. So when it comes to Joe Rogan frequently will identify, I suppose, as a libertarian, and yet he will do and say a lot of things that usually align with the right. If it's related to trans rights, for example, he's going to be on the very far right of that issue. And he suddenly was a little bit confused as to why people on the right are the only ones who has his back. Why is it that only Fox News is coming to my defense? Why is it that only Newsmax own and all those people are the only ones that kind of celebrate me?
Responses online from his Reddit page.
Today, the left has gone so fucking far left, so radical, that the right are the ones that are celebrating comedians and celebrating Chappelle.
Yeah,
and they had my back through all the crazy shit that happened with me. It was Fox News that fucking had my back.
Would you ever think that they would be the ones to cape for you?
Wow, what a surprise. Bizarre. We just live in strange times, I guess. Probably nothing. Probably nothing.
You, like, you know, 10 years ago?
I'm so liberal.
I mean, I'm so liberal. I want to scream it out. It's kind of like if the right are becoming, and this is the right of the United States, by the way. It's not as bad in Canada yet. I mean, it's only a matter of time. Canada follows America all the time as America Junior. What are you doing, America? We're going to become you soon. But the right in America, they're moving to far right authoritarian fascism, you know, at a very rapid pace. The left, I think, has positioned itself in the same place it's always been, as that compass just continues to go like this, and they're just still standing there, and they're looking back, and then all of a sudden, all the way over here, when they look behind them, they're like, whoa, the left got really radical. Look at that. Look how far away they are from me politically. Yeah, they're pretty radical. Anyways, can we start doing some legislation to basically wipe trans people off the earth, and then let's prevent women from ever having abortions? That's about where we're at right now, you know? You just described that Elon Musk tweet. Well, like, think of this, okay? So it's going to be hard to do. It's hard to look at the other screen. Okay, so right here, this is the left, and this is the right, a little ways back. And so the left is basically like, I'm anti-war, I'm pro-civil rights, and this side is like, y'all are getting uppity, y'all are traitors. And then as this angle, as year by year goes by, and it continues to move further and further to the right, I mean, yeah, if you look behind you, it's going to seem like the left has become far radicalized all of a sudden because they're doing the same things, which is standing up for marginalized people, that kind of stuff. And you look behind you, meanwhile, you're trying to legislate, women's bodies. You're trying to basically make sure that trans people don't exist. So it's going to appear from a distance that the left has become even more radicalized to you as you move further right. That's basically what's happening.
Yeah.
Like I talk about
know.
it all the time. Like I say, I am not a conservative. I'm not conservative. But I am pro Second Amendment, and I am a hunter, and I am a cage fighting commentator, and I drink and I smoke cigars, and I like to bow hunt.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there
There's
that's
some
like, hey,
crossover.
yeah, but it's
Like, no one critiques your wanting people to hunt their own meat take, okay? If anything, I think it's way better than factory farming. No one on the left is like, oh, I have a really big issue with that Joe Rogan. He apparently thinks that meat should be more sustainable. People should hunt their own meat and not rely on factory farming and mass-produced consumption. Like, no one is saying that. It's all your transphobia, non-stop, unfettered transphobia. That's what people critique you for.
just being a human. But I'm a compassionate person, and I believe that there's boy, I'll tell you what though, one thing that happened during this pandemic was I know it opened
associating hobbies with political views.
my eyes about human nature. Like, I used to be very pro universal basic income. My thought was, wouldn't it be great if you just had enough money so you could eat and you could pay your rent and then you could pursue what you wanted to? But the reality of human nature came fully into focus when I realized that when some people got all that money from the government, the COVID money, and then they got unemployment, they didn't want to work. I have a friend who has a restaurant. He could not get people to come back to work.
There's a take.
Yeah.
And
There's a take.
one buddy of mine, a bartender told him, I can come back.
And it's never going to be a critique of capitalism. It's never going to be a critique of exploitation. It's never going to be a critique of the fact that, it kind of sucks being paid minimum wage to do those jobs. I was a dishwasher for a long time in a restaurant. It fucking sucks. It's not a job that, like, you wake up every day and you're like, oof, yeah, I really want to contribute to that business and make sure that I can get those owners to be as rich as possible today. I just want to get in there and wash all those dishes, get that minimum wage, get home, and I've done a good, honest day's work, an honest day's labor, you know? And then all of a sudden, I have the ability to not do that anymore for a period of time, and it's like, oh, wow, that really, really sucked. That was a horrible, horrible job. I wish I was paid more.
Back to work, but I can only work for 20 hours a week. Because
also, that varies so wildly. There are some people who obviously had unemployment insurance or stuff like that. But I mean, the $1,400 check, what do you think that really accomplished? Do you think that, like, single-handedly made people unable to have to go to work ever again? Like, do you think, like, the poors can live forever off that little amount of money? I mean, they're poor after all. I mean, how many ramens does that buy? How many craft dinners? You know, I mean, that's got to be quite a bit of food. That $1,400. They must have been eating like kings. Those filthy poors.
that way I get unemployment. So he wouldn't work more than 20 hours a week so he could get free money. So he could have made more money, but he didn't want to because he didn't want to work. So he was getting that free money, and then my friend was like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Like, and now he's, so
It's just one banana. How could it possibly cost $10? 20 hours because I have 2 other jobs. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, I don't think he recognizes that there are some people who, when they finish their minimum wage job, they go onto their app and start their app economy job. And then it's like, yeah, I'm going to spend the next 6 or 7 hours driving an Uber and then getting home because I got to feed multiple family members and then pay rent.
We're short-staffed, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
Like, you see a lot of people that that own businesses that have a hard time finding people work.
And there is a phenomenon, this isn't like completely off base, there's a phenomenon that's going on all over the place right now. Whistler, Squamish are 2 places in British Columbia where they have a massive minimum wage staff shortage because the cost of living in those places is so high. Whistler is a skiing resort. It's a world-class resort. It's very, very expensive. It costs like almost $200 a day to ski there. They have a really hard time finding staff for a lot of the restaurants because for people who come there and are going to work at these places, it's very hard for them to have to pay rent, make money, and then also like have a life. So it creates the situation in which, okay, the cost of living is very, very high. Why can't we find anybody for these minimum wage jobs anymore?
For them. So there's pros to that, right? The pros are people. It's a marketplace that favors the worker, so workers can ask for more money. So you're seeing a lot of places like bars and restaurants and stuff that have to pay more money per hour, which I guess is good as long as the restaurant can stay open.
All right, so I will get
guess.
to some reactions online and, of course, my thoughts on all this. But First, I want to point out why I'm even covering this, because sometimes there's comments that are like, why do you even cover Joe Rogan? He has the #1 podcast in the world.
Oh, I hate that. I hate when people are like, why are you covering these? Like, okay, I'll be the first to admit, it's low-hanging fruit, okay? If I do a video on PragerU, it's because I don't have to do a lot of research. Debunking it in real time is just kind of common sense. So it's really easy to pump out a whole bunch of PragerU videos. And, you know, everyone has a laugh. Everyone laughs at Dennis Prager. Everyone says free auto. And then we call ourselves a day. It's not like some of the videos where I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to spend all night getting studies, stats, and stuff to be able to debunk this in real time, which I also do from time to time as well, okay? It's not all trash. It's not all dumpster fire in this corner of the internet. But like, I don't see why people get so upset about that. For someone like David Dole, he's probably going to get more views on this than when he covers another issue that probably is way more important, but no one watches it. For everyone who's like, you should be covering more important issues. Why don't you talk about how people are starving in Afghanistan? He does a video on that and none of you watch it. Like, it gets no views. The same people who are going to complain about that are like, oh, I can't wait till he does another dig on Joe Rogan. Hell yeah, we got a Joe Rogan video. It's coming out. I mean, this is the YouTube economy.
He has an influence on people. He is essentially mainstream media. He's being paid by Spotify to be exclusive to their platform. This has an impact. What he says has an impact. Now, he may not carry himself that way. He may not realize
Why do you platform Rogan?
that what
Yeah,
he
true.
says
What have I
matters
done?
and has influence on people, but it does.
People were saying that yesterday about Adam Sitch to me too, and I was like, do you understand that they have more viewers than me and Matt combined right now? I think we had like maybe 700 viewers. They had 1K. I know a lot of that comes in from a lot of people in that corner of the internet absolutely despise me, so there's a lot of hate watching going on there too. But at the same time, like, the platforming argument in both directions, I can understand why people would be mad if you platform someone who is like, you know, what do we call him, Uncle Fashy Fash or something? Like, if I and he had like 500 subs on YouTube and I brought Uncle Fashy Fash on and then he was just talking about, you know, the superiority of the Aryan race, and it's like, Lance, why did you do that? Why did you platform him? I'd be like, I agree with you. That was a bad call. I shouldn't have brought on Uncle Fashy Fash. And by the way, I'm just gonna say this out loud because I don't want this to be clipped and then taken. I'm not in any way saying that Adam and Stitch are that. They are centrists. You know, a lot of people were shocked by a handful of their takes. I keep telling you that I don't think sometimes you recognize how normies, like, what their view on these issues are. Like, a lot of us are so insular, so caught in our leftist bubble all the time that we think this is the way the rest of the world thinks, and then we're aghast if, like, you know, we're in the middle of a supermarket and we hear people talking about how funny the last Ricky Gervais special was. I was like in a group of friends drinking, and two of them who are not transphobes, they will be some of the first people to say trans rights are human rights, were going off about how much they loved the new Ricky Gervais special, and they were doing some of the quotes from the part where he was like in the bathroom, and then he's like, oh, what about her pronouns, his pronoun, that whole part, and they're like, oh, it was so funny, blah blah blah. No, I'm not transphobic, I just think that's funny, right? Like, sometimes people don't recognize where the actual, like, you know, Overton window is for some of these things. People who say that they're like on the side of a lot of stuff and they're very progressive or whatever can still harbor a lot of views that you would be like, oh wow, I didn't know that's what, like, you know, mainstream thought was on this kind of thing.
It's important to address this, especially if he's saying something that is just a little ridiculous. So first, you're on the Fox News point. Yeah, I mean, of course.
Did you call out your friends? Yeah, but see, I didn't do it in the way where I was like, I need you both to shut the fuck up because you're a couple of transphobes, you disgust me, and I will now spit on your feet. I didn't do that, you know, even if that was my initial I was just like, well, just so you know, the vast majority of people who do commit sexual assault in women's bathrooms aren't trans, they're cis, and that trans women are often more the victims of assault themselves rather than the perpetrators. And then they were both like, yeah, that's not really what I found funny. I just kind of found it funny that, you know, someone was trying to push back against the he/her. I was like, yeah, but did you understand why this might be a little problematic? It perpetuate, you know, I tried to have that conversation. I felt it was a little bit productive. It moved on quite quickly.
First, they're going to defend you when you were spreading COVID misinformation. So that's why they were defending you. Now, to be fair, it wasn't just Fox News. Jon Stewart defended him as well, and I covered this. I
appreciate your honesty. It's really hard to call people out like this. Well, like, I don't find, like, if I'm dunking on Joe Rogan, I'm going to go hard, and I'm just going to call him every single thing that comes to my mind and talk about how he's a fucking horrible piece of shit. Yeah, because it's Joe Rogan. He's one of the most famous, richest podcasters on the internet. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. We're all just having a good time together, laughing at Joe Rogan and his transphobia. If it's like people who I actually want to convince, I've found there's no productivity in going for the name calling or stuff like that, because they immediately shut off. No one likes to be called a name. No one wants to be called a racist. No one wants to be called a transphobe. No one wants to be called a bigot. Immediately they're like, oh, well, fuck you. And then they get defensive. And then you're not having any kind of a productive conversation. It's just both of you being like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, yeah, you would say that. Yeah. Like, it doesn't further. Like, I would rather they walked away being like, oh, yeah, I guess that is kind of yikesy that Ricky Gervais said that.
Defended Joe Rogan amid his COVID
ad hominem is only a weapon
controversy, and Stewart defended him, essentially saying that Rogan is not a bad actor. He's someone that you can converse with, that you can, influence, change his mind. So he shouldn't be attacked in the same way that, say, Tucker Carlson is, who is knowingly putting out bad information.
Oh, by the way, Hates Vadim sent me a message saying that you and Matt Binder are a fucking amazing combo. You should do that more often. And Matt said he's down as well, so that's pretty cool. We have a new bromance in the works. Also, Climate Town, super awesome channel, is going to be coming on the show for an interview. I reached out to him, and he was super down.
And I agree with that. As I've discussed before, I watched Rogan for years.
What?
And maybe you can say I have a bias here, because I did that, but I also have more information. I'm more familiar with who he is, his content, the kind of person he is. And he is not spreading lies on purpose. But he is definitely influenced by the people around him, which is why his show has become a lot more right-wing since having on more right-wing guests over the past several years. So when that is the company you surround yourself with, that is going to be the garbage that you are spewing and focusing on. So while Rogan may view himself as progressive, and I'm sure he still holds many of those, more progressive positions, like supporting universal health care, like supporting a woman's right to choose, that does not tend to be the focus of his discussions with his guests. And that's because his guests lean heavily right-wing. Now, yes, you can point out, oh, but he had on Kyle Kalinske, or he had on... Who else?
Those guys yesterday were very scared of you calling them conservative. Well, I don't know if you missed it. At the very start of the stream, apparently the whole chat was telling them not to tell me that Sargon of Akkad, or whoever was with Sargon of Akkad, dropped an F slur right before they left. Because they're like, oh, the fucking Lance, that soy cuck, he's gonna fucking clip it and then post it on the internet and get you canceled, blah, blah, blah. When I do clips of people, like, for example, Sargon of Akkad has called me the F slur before on his stream. And the reason I clipped it and put it on the internet was to bring attention to that. It wasn't like, hey, everybody, go report Sargon of Akkad, take down his channel, he blah, 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 called me the F slur. He ended up taking that video down. It was more like, I hope you know that this is the language and the rhetoric that this asshole uses. It's not blah, 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 cancel culture 1984. Like, I don't see why people are fucking so afraid of their own thoughts. It's kind of like how sometimes, have you ever seen that clip where there's like a white guy talking to a black guy in like a news conference, or no, it was like a news show, and he's like, yeah, but we can't like say the N-word, and then the black dude's like, yeah, you can say it. He's like, no, but I can't say it, right? Like I can't say it. He's like, yeah, go ahead, say it right now. You can say it. It's a word in English. Your mouth can move, sounds can come out. You can say the word out loud right now.
I'm forgetting her name now, but there's one other person. Empire Files.
Political puppy for a stupid thing I've heard David say. True.
You know what? I feel bad that I forget her name, so I'm looking it up right now. But he had on.
No, it's not Samuel
Abby
Jackson
Martin,
from Django.
Sorry, I blank on names.
Someone else.
But those are two people that I can think that are actually on the left that have at least tried to, influence Rogan a little bit. But guess like that.
I agree with soft soaping. That's the first time I've ever heard that term, soft soaping. The general public on bad takes, but hard disagree when it comes to commentators. They make money off their takes and spread them larger numbers, so I think it's fair to go super hard, even if it's perceived as shutting down the conversation. In cases of like Joe Rogan, or when like I kind of mock or make fun of like the Ben Shapiro's, Steven Crowder's, yeah, I'm totally on board with going super hard. Because I think they're different. I'm not trying to win in the hearts of minds of the Joe Rogan hate watchers who are going to watch that. It's kind of just like, this is not me saying Joe Rogan is a fascist, but if someone is a fascist, calling them a fascist to their face shouldn't be an insult. It's just calling a spade,
that are so very few and far between. And yes, he had on Cornel West once, like 3 years ago, had on Bernie Sanders once. But in terms of just the regular show, who he normally has on, it tends not to be people that are politically left-leaning. So even if he personally feels, and this is what I discuss all the time about people that have influence in media, I don't care how you personally feel about an issue. How do you use your platform? If you say, oh, I support Medicare for all, but you spend your entire time attacking the only people in Congress who are trying to get Medicare for all, then why does it matter if you personally claim to believe in Medicare for all if you're not doing anything to actually support the people trying to get it passed? So it doesn't matter what you personally believe as somebody in media. It matters how you use your platform. And the way Rogan uses his platform is to spread a lot of, at least recently, lies about COVID-19 that I don't think he was aware how full of shit he was saying that stuff. But again, influenced by those around him, influenced by, you know, the one kook out of the 100 scientists that say, yes, the vaccines are good. This is an issue. So you have to be aware of how you use your platform, especially when you are the biggest podcaster in the entire world. Now, on the comments about UBI versus unemployment, this is, he conflates the two here because he claims that, and by the way, UBI, I can take or leave. I don't think it's the end all be all. I don't think it's going to solve, you know, the world's problems. But the intent of it is that it is a universal payment that goes out to everybody regardless of their working situation. He conflates the influence or the impact that would have with unemployment, which goes away if you start working. So, and by the way, why would you work double the hours for less pay than you would get through unemployment, which, by the way, unemployment you pay into as well through your taxes. Like, it doesn't make you lazy to be logical. If you're logically looking at the situation and thinking, hey, I can make maybe a little less money through unemployment, but I'd be making, you know, less money and having a lot more free time, then why wouldn't I do that instead? So, you know, to try and conflate UBI with unemployment is just, it's not logical. And to get to some reactions from that on his Reddit page, which as I've discussed in a previous video, tends to be hypercritical of him now, especially, or in particular when it comes to issues of the working class. But here are some reactions online. So this person says, if you've ever worked hospitality, you know the reason people don't want to work these jobs is because they suck / the managers are terrible / you work incredibly hard for little money. Every job I've worked for the past year has been understaffed, and all the staff know exactly why.
The trailer for Walsh's documentary is out. It's been out for a while. Who's the clean version of Destiny? You mean like a proud neoliberal who doesn't use tons of slurs and stuff and call trans people mentally ill? I don't know. You tell me.
And actually, the response here, I want to reply to as well. He
no,
says,
Vosh
note
uses
that his
slurs.
friend was an employer, not an employee.
Vosh is really big into bringing the R slur back for some reason. He's using it all over Twitter right now. The wokest vocabulary. Conspiracy theory, anything contrary to mainstream media. Class reductionism, organizing for any issue other than the latest trendy culture war. Fascism, any country CNN tells us to hate, so support US wars. Fascist, anyone who disagrees with the wokeism. I love this. What is the point of you? I couldn't agree more. What is the point of Caleb Moppet?
I've noticed in several
Bastia, no. Bastia was a massive asshole when I started talking about indigenous genocide in Canada. He was one of the people who immediately was like mocking me for it, being like, oh, well, if Canada actually committed genocide, then America should invade it immediately and secure its oil fields. Tee-hee. Hilarious. It's probably IRI. Oh yeah, IRI. There you go. There's an example. IRI. Or Heem. Yeah, Heem is pretty wholesome for a lib.
comments now in Rogan's commentary around working class issues. My last video on Rogan was the exact same thing. Rogan quoted a friend of his who runs a company, and people in that company, employees, some of them I guess wanted a day off, a mental health day, and he was making fun of that. Again, this situation, his friend runs a restaurant, and then now they work less hours. Rogan needs more people around him who don't own companies. Maybe if he had that, he would be a little more connected to the average person. But because of the company he keeps now as a 100 millionaire, his perspective on issues is going to be a lot different. So
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, Hassan Piker is worth millions of dollars, and he still has pretty consistently okay takes on this shit. I don't see Hassan Piker being like, you know, all these people got really lazy when they got like a whole bunch of like government money and they didn't want to do jobs, and my restaurants aren't filled and I can't get my meals anymore. Pretty sag about this. I'm gonna mauled about this for hours on stream. He's still gonna say the same shit. Like, it doesn't fundamentally change just because that did.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jesters, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Egbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tao, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.